Welcome again to another edition of Lunchtime Devotions, and today, Tuesday, and according to our Bible study guide, being with Jesus, today we will read and see what we can glean from two events that happen. The narrative of the Gentile woman or Canaanite woman or Syro-Phoenician woman, same thing. And then thereafter followed by the feeding of the 4,000, not 5,000. Okay, here I think it's from the film, the Jesus film, and we see very well portrayed the gestures and what the actors were trying to portray. Here you see the imploring look on the Canaanite woman and Jesus looking at her. We do not see a lot of positiveness in this scene yet, because we know the story tells us there was some repulses and then we have a good ending. All right. So we read Matthew 15, starting from verse 21. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon possessed and suffering terribly. Okay, so here we see the from the map on the left, Tyre and Sidon were Gentile cities, which you can see, and they are on the top left of the map. Okay, here we see Tyre, and then we see Sidon and the Mediterranean Sea, of course. And this was where Jesus were. All right, so and these two cities were about 50 miles, 80 kilometers away. And Jesus went all the way to meet this one Gentile woman's need. This remarkable, unexpected love from Jesus to the woman of Canaan, and often referred to as the Syro-Phoenician woman, because of Phoenicia here, Syria, Syro-Phoenician woman. And you would recall in the past we were talking about the Gerasene demoniac. This was a Decapolis. Generally, the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee is considered Gentile, and this side, of course, and to the north, Capernaum. You remember the Jesus triangle, Chorazin, Capernaum, and Bethsaida. A lot of a great deal of it is Jewish territory. Okay, so we see that it was quite a distance that Jesus and the disciples traveled up north, a bit northwestwards. And Matthew used the old term Canaanite in describing that woman, primarily maybe because he cannot forget her ancestry, descendant of Israel's arch enemies, ancient enemies. Now, she was actually a descendant of the old Canaanite worshippers of Baal. She comes to the Jewish Messiah for blessing. So we see here one of the early occasions where Jesus is going to engage with a non-Jewish woman. We earlier already had one incident, the woman at the well, and then we had the centurion. So here we see increasingly the Gentiles are coming into the picture. So we read on the second part of the verse is, have mercy on me. My daughter is severely demon possessed. So here we see the woman coming to intercede for her daughter. The daughter was not pregnant. And we can learn from her the elements of an effective intercessor. Her great need, she probably didn't attend any intercession seminar, but her great need brought out in her how to pray. And when she came to Jesus, she made her daughter's needs her own. Many of us are in this group and listening in are intercessors, and key point to remember when you are interceding, make whoever, whichever, the nation, whatever you are interceding for, make it your own. And then she goes on to say, have mercy on me, O Lord, son of David. So, Gentile woman, she understood who Jesus was. However, many of Jesus' own countrymen didn't even know, didn't even care. But this woman of Canaan, she knew. Perhaps she heard that Jesus had started to heal Gentiles already. And what made this encounter unique is that Jesus did those miracles when the Gentiles came to him in Jewish territory. Now is the game changer. Here, Jesus came to Gentile territory and met this woman. Just a sidetrack, what can we learn from this intercessor? This woman who was actually supplicating also, what? Asking for herself. And there are three important elements in the plea, very quickly. Firstly, her petition. She started with, have mercy on me. In dire need, we are so dependent on the unfailing mercy of Him who is full of compassion, love, and mercy. Go together. And then her recognition. Here she says, O thou, O Lord, Son of God. Even though this was a grief stricken mother, yet she recognized the authority, the deity of him whose name was great in Israel and also among the Gentiles. And when she used that royal title, Son of God, she merely implied that Jesus and Jesus alone was able to cast out the devil from her daughter. Here she's saying there's no rival, there's no equal. You are the Son of God. And finally, her statement, very simply and very clearly. And she says, we read in King James Version, no, my daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. And then Mark says she has an unclean spirit. And then we read in Matthew, demon possessed. And then she goes on to say the condition of her daughter suffering terribly. So she never wasted words as she stated the terrible trial shadowing her home. Here, probably it's not just the daughter, Noah, it has an effect on the entire household. And the interesting part is she probably has a husband, husband's name not known, daughter's name not known, herself not known, only referred to as the Syro-Phoenician woman. So here we can learn one more thing as we come to God in our intercessory prayers. Eloquent language is not that necessary when we present our needs to Him who knows already all about these needs before we even state them. But just present it simply and clearly. No need to be eloquent or telling things that has not really any connection with what you intend to pray. So in verse 23 to 24, we read what appears to be a cold response to the request of this Gentile woman. Verse 23 tells us, Matthew 15, Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps on crying after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Picking on the word sent. All right, so we read, he did not answer her. Although the mother here was interceding for the daughter, we would expect Jesus would react favorably or positively, but at this point, he did not give her even an encouragement. In fact, his reservedness drew a more energetic and faith-filled response from this Gentile woman. Here we were probably, many of us, I think we must admit that if we have that type of response, nothing's happening, give up. But no, she stepped up her intercession. Her faith level increased. And Here the disciples were choosing the easy way out, send her away. Not so much, yeah, Lord, answer her request and then we can send her away. But rather, let's send her away. She's just a pain and blocking us of what we want to do. And then Jesus answered, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Are still trying to let them know we will minister to the Jewish community first. But here, Jesus defined the focus of his mission initially to his irritated disciples. They said, send her away, send her away. And to the Gentile woman. He made it clear he was not sent to the Gentiles like her at this point. Okay, some suspense. So it is fair to ask ourselves, lost sheep means what? Is it the lost sheep among the house of Israel, or Israel as a whole already were lost? Many commentators would prefer to think Israel as a whole was lost. So we continue with verse 25. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me. He replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Yes, it is, Lord, she said. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. So here she said three simple words. Worshipped him, she acknowledged him, and she said, Lord, help me. She responded to the rebuff with increased dedication, and she prevailed. And the Gentile woman continued to show what a dedicated intercessor does. From Charles Spurgeon, he tells us those who seek the conversion of others, means all of us, and this is what he says in very simple English. I urge you, you who seek the conversion of others, to follow her example, the Gentile woman, the Canaanite woman's example. Notice she did not pray, Lord, help my daughter. That was not her prayer, but she said, Lord, help me. And here we see Charles Spurgeon added a small message in his commentary. He says, I commend this prayer to you because it is such a handy prayer. You can use it when you are in a hurry. You can use it when you are in a fright. You can use it when you do not have time to bow your knee. You use it when you are preaching from the pulpit. You can use it when you're opening your shop, when you're starting your office. You can use it when you're rising in the morning. It is such a handy prayer that I hardly know any position in which you could not pray it. Lord, help me. So here, Charles Spurgeon is saying, pick up this little tip from the Canaanite woman. That here she was just telling, Lord, help me. And the interesting part and a bit disturbing to us would be some comparison to dogs. It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. And she countered, yes, it is. Even the dogs can eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. So here we read that in some versions it says little dogs. Jesus continued, to say discouraging things to her, appearing seemingly discouraging. Yet this was not quite as severe as it might sound. Jesus, in fact, was calling her a little dog. And all of us love puppies. We will never throw a puppy away or hurt a puppy. And he used the term little to soften the harshness of calling her a dog. This softened the traditional Jewish slur towards Gentiles and all others who are non-Jews, all infidels. They are called dogs. Here, Matthew was writing so that the Jewish reader can understand. And even as we feel a bit uneasy at reading this comparison of the woman to a dog, we are in a position, while we have the advantage, we often say, of hindsight, reading the Bible through, but here we are not having the great advantage of hearing the tone of our Lord Jesus as he spoke. We suspect his tone was not harsh, that it was just to invite her to grow in her faith. The term dogs actually is not comparing so much, here Charles Spurgeon say, to the dogs that are in the streets, the stray dogs, but rather household dogs, dogs who are pets, who are part of the household. And here they have their portion too, though not the children. Even the little dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. And here she is saying, yes, Lord, I don't mind being a little dog. As long as I'm part of the household, I want a portion of that crumbs. And it is rather meaningful. In between the lines, we are saying that Jewish community was increasingly rejecting the bread which the master is giving. And even the crumbs that are thrown away, she's saying, yes, I want to be a part of this extended blessing. And then we read, yet even the little dogs. Yet even, just now, 3 simple words, Lord help me. And now 2 simple words, yet even. These are often words of faith. She accepted Jesus' description and asked for mercy despite it. She did not get angry. And she said, you will not, never mind. You gave me 3 repulses, never mind. I want whatever you can throw away from the table, from the children even, I will take. And then we see a turning of the tide. Then in verse 28, Jesus said to her, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed at that moment. And we have a good ending already. But basically, this was her trail, her region. She was from Gentile territory. Her request put through very clearly from the heart. The repulse, what seemed initially from the master, but her resoluteness, she persisted, and finally her reward. And you see, and we read, and we learn that the daughter was healed. Here we see the last part is a story of faith. He complimented her great faith. And the other time we heard of great faith was the centurion. But it was not told to the centurion directly, it was told to the crowd. But in this case, the Gentile woman heard it from the Lord directly. And only 2 people up to this point received this compliment, and they were Gentiles. So, great faith can be found in unexpected places. And in this case, this Canaanite woman and the centurion sometimes measured from its disadvantages. She was really at a disadvantage point, but their faith was great and definitely nothing compared to the institutions of Judaism. Great is your faith. I want to also receive this accolade from the master. And she says, and he says to her, great is your faith, let it be as you desire. Her faith was great enough to receive that request, her innermost desire. And very quickly, to pick out what can we learn about great faith. Her faith was great even compared to other virtues. She had other virtues. She was humble, she was patient, persevering, she cared for the child. Yet Jesus didn't compliment her on any of these virtues, but only her faith. And of course, her faith was great because it was unlikely. How can a Gentile trust and worship and acknowledge Jesus? Her faith was great because She worshipped Jesus even before she had an answer from him. Her faith was great because it was tested so severely. I really wouldn't want to be here in her shoes, expecting straight away the master to say, yes, okay, your child has been healed. But no, no. And because it was clever, she persisted. She presented her petition clearly. And because it concerned a need right in front of her and a real need, desperateness. She was desperate and she cried out. And finally, because it would not give up. The faith was great because it was persistence and undying faith. And then after this, we read nothing else that Jesus did during this time in Tyre and Sidon. It would seem his only appointment, his divine appointment, was to meet this woman of faith and her afflicted daughter. And beyond that, to this day, 2000 years later, we read of this story of faith and how we can be blessed by it. And we go on very quickly to the feeding of the 4,000. So it would seem for some of us, to me, when I was a very young Christian, this is the same story of the feeding of the 5,000. But it is not so, as many of us will know, that it is not a retelling, it is not an extension of the story, it is not a repeat. Only this time there were 4,000 people. Very, very major, but yet subtly presented differences. So we read Matthew 15, verse 29. Jesus left there, where we were with the Syrophoenician woman, and went along the Sea of Galilee, came back to that place. Then he went up a mountainside and sat down. Great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others who had needs. And the Lord healed them all. The people were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the crippled walking, the lame walking, and the blind seeing. And rightly so, they praised the God of Israel. So we see the multitudes came to him. Though Jesus briefly withdrew from the multitudes, he did not do so permanently. He had work to do. So here we see this was a period in the ministry of Jesus when he did his healing and providing work in the predominantly Gentile region of Galilee. Here we read this on the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee in the region known as Decapolis, where there were 10 cities. And Jesus healed for the mixed, maybe mixed, but predominantly Gentile multitude. And now we know the Gentiles were in fact getting much, much more than the few crumbs from under the table. So we read, then we go on in verse 32 very quickly. Jesus said, call his disciples and say, I have compassion for these people. They have been with me 3 days. Remember this, 3 days. And I have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way, or other versions say they may faint. And as usual, the disciples answered, never learn, 5,000 already. Now they are asking the same question. Where can we get enough bread in this remote place, such a crowd? And Jesus said, how many loaves? 7 loaves and a few small fish. So he told them to sit down, took the 7 loaves and the fish, gave thanks, broke it, gave to the disciples, and the disciples distributed. Everybody ate, satisfied. How many baskets left over this time? 7 broken pieces, not crumbs. And the number who ate were 4,000 men. I'm not counting women and children. So could be 8,000, 9,000. And Jesus sent the crowd away, and he got into the boat and went to the vicinity of Magadan. We know from the map already. So here we see Jesus did not want to send away the crowd hungry. They may collapse, they may faint. So the basic pattern, as in the 5,000, and the disciples Again, a bit blur, not knowing how to react, not knowing how to solve the problem. So here we see there are many differences distinguishing it from the feeding of the 5,000. Very quickly, due to shortage of time. Here we see different numbers of those that were being fed. Now, one was 5,000 men and this one 4,000 men. You double that, add a bit more, were actually different crowds, different. And different locales. We're not, locale is different from location. Location means much more specific, but locale is the general vicinity. And here we see the 5,000 was on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee, and here the 4,000 on the eastern shore, Decapolis side of the Sea of Galilee. Mixed or mainly predominantly Gentile communities. And different seasons of the year. How do we know? Indicated by no mention of grass in the second account. So we see these little things, so as we read the Gospels, they ask them to sit on the grass, but this one, no. And different supply of food at the beginning. This time, no little boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. The bread appeared. And there was a different period of time of waiting for the people. This 4,000 we just now said, 3 days already, they have been waiting, and such was their hunger for the spiritual food. And then the 5,000 was what? 12 baskets, and this time 7 baskets. Very interesting to note that the baskets in the original text, they do not mean the same type of baskets. Just a bit of trivia. For the 5,000 with the 12 baskets, it was a Kofinos type of basket, a wicker basket, just more like a backpack, and often made of twigs and branches. And this was the 12 baskets that were left over. While the 4,000, where we had 7, is what is called, the original text of Greek is spouris, something round, twisted, and it is quite flexible. You can roll it up. And this is made from reed, plated, and a big type of hamper, large enough to hold a man. Very famously, Paul's escape from Damascus, he was lowered and in a spurious type of basket. And this is the difference between the two. Although we read baskets, but actually different types of baskets. One was 12 and one was 7. So, in essence, is there something we can learn from this? Of course, we know already from the 5,000, miracles will happen. But in this case, the miracles we know can happen anytime, whether it is in Gentile territory, Jewish territory. It can be anywhere. It can be anytime, no matter the time of day, whether they have been without food for 3 days or just 1 day. And finally, to anyone, the universality of the gospel. Anyone, even an unknown Syro-Phoenician woman whose daughter was demon-possessed, the Lord saw her great faith and rewarded her. Amen.